To speak truly, few adult persons can see nature. Most persons do not see the sun. At least they have a very superficial seeing. The sun illuminates only the eye of the man, but shines into the eye and the heart of the child. The lover of nature is he whose inward and outward senses are still truly adjusted to each other, who has retained the spirit of infancy even into the era of manhood. His intercourse with heaven and earth becomes part of his daily food. In the presence of nature, a wild delight runs through the man in spite of real sorrows. Not the sun or the summer alone, but every hour and season yields its tribute of delight, for every hour in change corresponds to and authorizes a different state of mind from breathless noon to grimmest midnight. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my very first episode of a brand new series that I'm so excited about called Simply Conscious Commentary in the Garden. What you just saw was a little taste of the garden that I grew up with that's continuing to grow, literally. And I wanted to do this style of conscious commentary, particularly now with all that's going on and so many who are resorting to being at home and gardening like never before. In fact, I, as an avid gardener for about 20 years now, and doing my seasonal planting and buying of flowers and supplies, I have never seen so many sold out stores because everybody's gardening now. But nonetheless, it's a good thing, and I figured this would be a great time to kind of fuse the two ideas of nature with the subjects that we talk about and love so much. What you just heard me read is from a book that came from my family library. This is basically an anthology of my favorite Ralph Waldo Emerson essays, poems, and addresses, in which he talks about simply, and this is from the essay Nature, so I thought this was appropriate to start out our episode. Reverence for nature. We hear it, particularly in these circles, all the time. Go out and appreciate the trees, as I feel thank goodness, the wind sort of blowing right now, not the wind, breeze, the summer breeze, because it is quite warm and toasty out here. But we do hear about this idea of nature being a healer, intelligent, and nurturing. And it's often presented in a sort of prose or poetic tone. And oftentimes people will say, yes, that's nice, and I believe that to be true, and yet we're not necessarily really acting upon and acting with nature. We've got all sorts of nature falling right now. Anyway, I wanted to start off this, I guess you could call it pilot episode of Conscious Commentary in the Garden, to really talk about why I feel now more than ever, now that we have some extra time on our hands, some of us do at least, and even if we don't, to take the time to get out and appreciate what has always been here for us, what is always, I feel, has always been an intelligent force that is wanting and willing to commune with us if we pay attention to it. That passage from Emerson to me speaks volumes. It's always been one of my favorite as part of the nature essay, because what he was doing is taking notice of the fact that adults particularly were too busy, were too consumed by the material world to notice the power inherent in the trees, the plants, the seeds, the grass, the mountains, the water, the air, nature, the sun. It talks about the sun. We notice the sun's brightness as it gazes upon our face, but what we don't take into account is that there is an interaction. It's not just hitting us on the surface, it's going through us. And if we can simply learn how to, have reverence for these elements that Source has put here for us, that universe has put here for us, we will become more connected with it. That's what I feel. So again, this is what I really wanted to, and I'm looking at nature, this big fat bee, and I promise I'm not going to run. Some things in nature can be a little creepy. Anyway, I don't think he's going to sting me, hopefully not. What does it mean to commune with nature? We know that there's a phenomenon called grounding or earthing. this act of getting out into the grass and maybe even into the dirt or sand on the beach, taking off your shoes and connecting with the soil and the dirt. There's something that PMH Atwater, whom you obviously hear me talk about a lot, she's been on the show, something that she said to me many years ago that still resonates to this day. Nature, if we interact with it, has the ability to absorb our problems, to absorb our issues if we ask for it. But what she does is she doesn't hold it upon herself. She knows how to compost it. And she used that word, to alchemize, to take the problems, the challenges, the tumult, of which there is much today, and turn those bad seeds into fertile soil and eventually new growth. This is not just a metaphor. I have never believed that this is a metaphor. I feel that this is actually, we don't know quite how that process works, but I am clear in the times that I have spent in this very yard communing with nature. A little bit of truck noise, forgive that, but nonetheless, we're out in nature, so it comes with the package. I'm going to let that go by. When we take the time, like I have done, and I know some of you have as well, and it's not necessarily about talking, but rather listening, sitting in silence and in solitude, another thing that Emerson wrote so fervently and so frequently about. My father used to say, prayer is not about talking to God, it's about being silent and listening for wisdom and listening for answers. And I feel that by being in nature, it's much of the same. I went out yesterday, I think it was yesterday, out into one of the trees that you just saw, my favorite. I call her Yin. Yes, Y-I-N, this beautiful pine tree that is so old and so wise. And I decided I'm going to do my prayer here today. I always pray before a show. Call it prayer, call it an affirmation, whatever you like to call it, just acknowledging the sacredness and the blessing of what I get to do. But yesterday when I went out, I decided not to speak, but just to look at her. I believe this tree is a she. And I simply stood before her and asked her, if there's anything you want to impart to me, please let me know. I'm going to tell you a little story. And I'm actually, there's some people that say, even some folks in our space that are very nature centric will say, you talk to the trees, you talk to the plants. Well, yes, I do. Because I had the opportunity many years ago, sitting, you can't see it, but the living room behind me with a beautiful picture window, many years ago, looking out at these very trees, and something struck me and made me understand that, yes, these plants are not only alive, of course they're alive, but perhaps conscious or intelligent, really. And so as I gazed at these very trees, I asked, what are you and how do you exist? And here's what, I'm kind of paraphrasing because it's been so many years ago, here's what it came back to me and said, Alexis, we as trees, particularly these old tall trees, know how to bridge heaven and earth. Our roots go deep into the earth, deep to its core, and our treetops reach to the heavens. And this is how we bridge heaven and earth. We are infinity. I promise you, this is exactly what came back to me. Of course, I didn't hear them audibly, but this was the distinct message that I received. And from that moment on, I said, and I was shocked, but from that moment on, I said, my God, all this talk about nature being alive and our communing with it is true. And ever since that moment, and I wish I could remember how many years ago it was quite a few years ago. Ever since that moment, I made a commitment to myself, particularly when times are tough, to defer to that which is old and ready and wise enough to listen to our problems and to help us if we let it. This is not a left brain thing, you know that. This is about getting in rhythm, like Emerson talked about, like a child knows how to do inherently, and then it's taught out of them, it's programmed out of them. We've got to get back to that. want to play a clip for you very quickly from a show that I did with Sonia Grace, mystic healer, shamanic healer Sonia Grace. This is probably my favorite interview that I've done with her. There have been a few at this point, done about a year ago, where she talked about the goddess of Mother Earth. And, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to play the clip for you, and then we'll come right back on the other side of this. Alchemy. I look at the earth as being an alchemist. So if we're giving the earth our problems and saying, compost this for me, alchemize it, transmute it, is that happening? Can that happen?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, her abilities as a being are far exceed anything that we, humble mere little humans can understand.
Yeah.
She is a powerful being, and all the planets in the universe have a being in them. It's just her body happens to be round, and that's her body. But she's ancient. She's old. She's been in this body for millions of years, and she can handle it. She has a way of transforming that energy. And years ago, I remember seeing her. I call her the goddess. She literally rose up out of the earth. She was huge, and she stood looming over me, and she said, the thing that makes me really sad is, she says, people used to bring me their problems. They used to tell me their stories. They used to talk to me, and sit with me and share what was going on. And then she kind of looked away, and she looked really sad, and she said, they don't do that anymore.
They used to talk to me, and they don't anymore. The people used to commune with me, and they don't. They ignore me. And Sonia said, it's not that she was angry, she being the goddess, but she was sad. Have we lost all manner of connection to that which we come from? I always say nature is not just a metaphor, it's a mirror. So she not only has the ability to give us wise counsel, she will often reflect back to us what we're feeling inside, hence having the ability to take, if it's pain and tumult, take it from us. But she is wise enough and has the knowledge built in and knows how to compost those problems. There's so many references throughout history. The wise elders, the indigenous peoples, the wisdom traditions talked about these sorts of things, and being in lockstep with nature, using nature as a clear compass to be able to move forward, to know when the sun comes up without looking at a clock or opening your eyes, and when it goes down, to literally have the planets and the configuration of the planets guide our activities at any given time. I thought this would be an appropriate show for this kickoff episode of Conscious Commentary in the Garden for a couple of reasons. A, because I wanted to start out by showing you a little bit of the trees. I'm not going to show you the grass right now because we're actually getting it reinstalled. It's a little messy, but I figured this would be apropos as a takeoff to talk about these things and why now, with all that's going on, with all of the crisis that began some going on 3 months ago, and now, as I said the other day, we've got this added layer of extreme violence. I'm hoping that it's relenting a little bit, but the net result is there are a lot of us out here that are feeling lost, that are feeling challenged, that are feeling alone, that are feeling desperate. And there are many out there, maybe some of you are listening, that maybe don't have anyone that they can talk to in this way. Wise counsel, a mentor. I say go outside. Sure, take your shoes off. In many parts of the world, it's warm enough now where you can, and get in the grass, get in the sand, away from others. And it should be done in silence, I think. And just give her your problems. Start talking to her again. I have a feeling, particularly now, you've heard me say this before, during a period where I feel a portal perhaps a dimensional portal has opened up and there is more of a potency in our connection with those things that we heretofore considered not able to communicate with. I'm still having those experiences. I'm still having a multitude of synchronicity, and yes, repeating numbers. But all the while, and every single time, I'm thinking something's happening here where the metaphysical world is now exposing itself more to us. What else can I do with this? Perhaps nature will be more apt to listen. I think she's always listening, but maybe I can now make a concerted effort to go out to this tree, which I am now doing, and around in my garden, which I'll be showing you throughout the season, and literally talking and waiting. This, it doesn't work like I'm talking to you, or let's say you were sitting in front of somebody and you get an immediate reaction or response. It may be something you get in a dream. It may be a signal that you somehow know is coming from that conversation that you had, or that thought that you had, that telepathic communication that you had with whatever form of nature you may have been communing with. I also want to talk for a minute about those. I'm very blessed that I'm in the home that I grew up in, and as I said, I'm now developing this garden, and I'm so excited to bring it to you. I have shown pictures on the Facebook, the Journeyers over on Facebook for the last several years, because it's so exciting to me, and I do believe there is a relevancy to what I talk about here on Higher Journeys and the very process of nature. This is part of my high journey. But I want to address for the many of you and many folks out there that may not have the luxury of, all this plant life and birds chirping, etc. Nature is everywhere, whether in a glass of water, a crystal that you might have, a house plant, a grain of sand. As William Blake said, the universe indeed exists within a grain of sand. Hence, that consciousness, that intelligence, and that invitation to commune with it is there. So I don't care where you are. You have the ability to grab a little bit of that nature or go walk to it and commune with it. So I so implore you to do so at this time. This isn't just idle chatter. This is the time to really look at the tools that we have at our disposal that don't cost us anything, that don't require us to go anywhere, that we don't have to take a course about. There's no process, there's no manual. Get out and talk to her. And I guarantee at some level, in some way, if you can come to and approach nature with reverence, humility, and an open heart, she will respond. I have no problem with saying that. And I so hope that you will join me on this part of the journey. So what else can I tell you? So here's the deal. We just started. Today's June 5th. It's a beautiful day today, absolutely gorgeous. And we've got some good, warm, toasty weather coming up. I'm going to have to do a lot of watering of this garden. But so here's what I'm going to do. Every other week, we're going to do this bi-weekly on Friday at 3 p.m. I will be showing you a little bit more of my garden. You're just seeing, we're on the patio level right now, and what's behind me, or you can't see it, but a huge hosta bed. I've got hosta beds all over the place, as well as some potted, container gardens. I have about 10 gardens on my property and developing. So I want to show you as the garden transforms and grows, and each time we come to you with this, I figured what I would do is give you a little bit of a chore each time, just for a few minutes or so, and then we're going to get into the subject of the day. I thought it would be appropriate for this very first show to use this backdrop as the impetus for the subject that we're talking about, and that is simply reverence for nature and rebuilding a relationship with it to help us on our journey, specifically now. Going forward, we could be talking about UFOs. We could be talking about the afterlife realm. The things that we talk about on Higher Journeys, we will continue. But again, using nature as the backdrop and maybe a little tidbit of a tour prior to. If you're good with that, that's what we're going to do. And I'm really excited about it. What else do I want to say? Oh, by the way, I was supposed to say this at the top of the show. Would you please subscribe to Higher Journeys on YouTube? I have to tell you, I have been shy about asking, particularly coming out of my mouth, because everyone's doing it. You know, we would have to pick garbage day, right? You can probably hear the garbage can behind me. It is what it is. Again, I apologize. I thought they were done for the morning. I'm going to wait for it to go. Keep it moving. Okay. Subscribe. I ask for this reason only. First of all, I'm hoping that you're enjoying what we talk about here on Higher Journeys, both with conscious commentary, which we are going to be kicking in more of, as well as the shows with our guests. What we're doing is for all of you, and for those who are interested in these subjects that may not be aware that we're here. So by subscribing, by spreading the word, obviously liking if you do like the episode, and of course commenting and interacting. This is a community. That's why I call you the Journeyers. So I'm going to ask kindly if you would subscribe to the channel and do like the episode if you do. That means a lot to all of us, and it helps to get the word out more, because that's what YouTube recognizes, that interaction and those subs going up. Yes, everyone's talking about it, I know, but it's par for the course right now. So, and it's appreciated so greatly by me and my team. So we talked about alchemizing and composting, taking our problems, our challenges, the crisis, whatever it may be, particularly now, going into nature and asking her to be the alchemist, to be able to transmute. I thought this would be a good segue to talk about next week's guest, and I am so delighted to let you know that Billy Carson will be joining us once again on Wednesday, next Wednesday. I don't have the date in front of me, but maybe I can flash it up on the screen. Billy and I have been talking lately about what's been going on in terms of the protests and the violence, and I learned something about Billy Carson that I did not know until a couple of days ago, that has to do with his own interaction, well, his own experience with this very thing. I'm going to leave it very vanilla, very generic right now, because he has agreed to tell you the story. You may have heard already, but I'm not going to spill the beans. I'm going to let him tell you. This is not solely what the show will be about, but what we decided to make the theme about for next week when he comes on the show is alchemizing tumult. I'm going to call this alchemizing, transmuting, once again, crisis into opportunity. And there's no better person to talk about that than Billy Carson. What a brilliant man. I'm so proud of him and all that he's been through, and how he has been able to alchemize his own life, literally from poverty to extreme success. Not just about the money, he'll be the first to tell you that, but really digging deep into that which he knows and loves. And I think his love for all of the things that he talks about, including ancient history, has brought in incredible know-how for him. He's a true alchemist. So next week we're going to have him on the show. I'm going to make sure I'm getting everything in. Oh, I'm going to say this and I'm going to let you go. We're about 21 minutes in. So I told you that every other week we'll be doing the conscious commentary in the garden. On alternate weeks, guess what we're starting out? Conscious commentary live. So many people have said to me, Alexis, you got to go live. You got to do the live thing. And I'm like, I'm really into things kind of working out in terms of, there's so many things that can go wrong. I don't want to conjure anything up, but having come from live radio, I have seen just about everything under the sun happen in a live broadcast. And yet this seems to be a very popular delivery method today, particularly with digital media. And so with the urging of the great folks that I work with, they said, Alexis, just give this a shot. And I said, well, one good thing is, probably the best of all, is that I will get to interact with the journeyers directly. We're going to call this an Ask Me Anything or Ask Alexis Anything. Not that I'll have an answer to everything. Probably a lot of it I won't, but whatever I can impart to you and share with you, I'd be happy to. And of course, what we can do is maybe talk about the previous episode like I'm doing right now. Any questions that you have, any comments, any input that you'd like to bring up. So we're going to start Conscious Commentary Live next week. So as it's working out right now, it looks like we're going to do Conscious Commentary in the Garden bi-weekly, and then the alternate weeks will be Conscious Commentary Live. And that's about it. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to be doing this at least for the season, up and probably through Labor Day, and then we'll go from there. So I think that's about it, guys. Here's another great thing. Go get a book and go out in nature and read. And no better type of material to read than Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thoreau. I'm actually in the area. I'm in New England, right where all of this took place. The transcendentalists of this age, Emerson, Thoreau, Alcott, etc. I'm so blessed to be here. This feeds me. This definitely nurtures and helps me in what I deliver to you. Just being in this environment, it's magical. So wherever you are, I implore you, go out and do the same thing. It's free and it's invaluable. I guarantee you. So I'm going to let you go for now. I love you. Stay safe, and we will talk to you soon. We'll see you next week with Billy Carson.